Kevina Teacher meets Kevina Student. So I was both a Kevin and encountering a Kevin in this one. And the stupidity on display is in the social skills department on both sides. Some context. In #X200B. The family was military and so by 3rd grade 1 was on my 4th school. I started in a jurisdiction where kids can go to school or preschool from age 3 and my folks opted for school because I was G and T, so it's not as much as it seems. And #X200B. G and T kids seem to run to two extremes. Weird quiet ones, and weird ones who are physically incapable of tolerating boredom or wrongness. Guess which one I was? And #X200B. I'll give you a hint. Once, when I was about 5, my 9yo cousin sat on me because my fidgeting was annoying her too much. So I started wiggling my toes and fingers. Yes, I'm being evaluated as an adult for ADHD. Why do you ask? And #X200B. Anyway, Kevina the teacher, for her part, was the kind of old school teacher that cannot admit an error, penalizes kids for mastering the material by basically putting you in timeout for the rest of class, and overall a nasty, cruel bully who shouldn't be in charge of a goldfish, let alone 32 kids between the ages of 7 and 9. And #X200B. We got on about as well as elemental potassium and water, is what I'm saying. YouTube has some cool videos on that if you're not a chemistry type. And #X200B. Back to the story. This is the tale of my first interaction of Kevina, and how I managed to start my first period of my first day of my first week of a new grade at a new school with my first ever in-school suspension, setting a new record for speed of getting in shit in school in the extended family that stands to this day. First impressions, I am good at them. And #X200B. So first period was a bit of a deal because I was young for the grade, because of differences in age cutoffs in different regions and my prematurity I'd effectively skipped a grade, and small for my age. So they actually had to get a kindergarten desk brought up because I couldn't see over my desk, yep. Was tiny. Eventually the dust settles with a desk I can actually use and see over. And #X200B. But by now the entire class is aware that I'm the weird kid who's too short for a normal desk and I'm already getting short joke. Great. And #X200B. So, being my G and T self in a mainstream program for the first time, I'm thinking I got this. Other programs it was cool to be good at math, so I just show off my algebra and pre-calculus and I can recover right. Current me looking at kid me like, oh honey. Oh honey no. Ever heard the phrase, for a smart kid they sure can be stupid? That was me. Book smart, socially oblivious, too impulsive for good judgment. And #X200B. So the teacher starts the review with addition. I am a bit insulted, I'm good at math but in the old district mainstream kids started long multiplication in 3rd grade, and 2nd grade material was multiplication and division and some simple geometry, not addition and subtraction, which was kindergarten, 1st grade material. My thinking was along the lines of, they might not be good at math but don't call them stupid, teacher. Unfortunately, this sense of being insulted for my classmates doesn't come out. What I say is, in my old school we did long division, this is too easy. And #X200B. Yeah. I was referred for an ASD assessment the previous year. So that tracks with my childhood social skills. And #X200B. And the teacher replies, well, if it's so easy, you can show the class how to do this one. And #X200B. And she writes 2 times 3 equals on the board. And #X200B. Triumphantly, I say, 6. And #X200B. And the teacher says, no it's not, it's 5. I guess kids at your old school aren't that good at math. And #X200B. She turned back to write another problem. And #X200B. I was shocked. After I recovered my jaw from the floor, I stuttered a bit and finally blurted, that's wrong. And #X200B. The teacher, let me tell you, knew how to turn around ominously. I grew up in an authoritarian household and I knew it was possible to wash dishes ominously and call someone's name ominously but not turning around. That was new. And #X200B. Excuse me? What was that, dear? This wasn't the dear of a sweet older lady talking to a kid. This was the saccharine fake sweet Atlantic Canada dear. That can mean anything you want it to. and right now it meant a string of profane insults so long I'd probably hit the word limit. Think how US Southerners can say, "Fuck you, you stupid idiot," with a, "bless your heart." That kind of dear. And #X200B. And bless my socially oblivious little heart. I didn't pick up what she was putting down. 2 times 3 isn't 5. That'd be 2 plus 3. 2 times 3 is 6. And #X200B. A reasonable adult would admit the error and move on, even if I was being a right little paster about it. Not Kevina. No, the answer is 5. That's final. And #X200B. A socially savvy kid would have recognized that tone and dropped it. Not me. No, I had the bit in my teeth. She was wrong and I couldn't just let her sit in her wrongness being wrong at me. This wouldn't stand. She's a teacher, she's supposed to know better. Why are you being stupid about this? And #X200B. Excuse me? And #X200B. A teacher should know the difference between addition and multiplication, miss. You're wrong, and I can prove it. I stood up from my desk. And #X200B. I am not wrong, she said as she stalked towards me and my desk. You're new, and you want to make an impression on the class, but this isn't the way to do it. And #X200B. She pushed me back into my chair and continued. You will sit and not say another word if you want to not spend the rest of your first day in the office. And #X200B. Smugly, she turned to return to the board. And #X200B. But I had spent 7 years mastering the ability to walk quiet enough to avoid my father's rage. And she was wrong. This wrongness couldn't be tolerated. I followed her. She didn't notice until I was drawing on the board. And #X200B. I drew 2 sets of 3 lines, and circled each. To the class one said, 2 3s is 6. And I counted the 6 lines. And #X200B. Then I drew a pair of lines and another set of 3 and circled each. To the class, I announced, 2 plus 3 is 5. And #X200B. I counted the 5 lines one by one, stabbing my chalk into the board each time. The last one I did hard enough the chalk broke. And #X200B. I looked her in the face. Speaking with the blunt, brutal honesty of a socially inept child with no filter, I said, you're wrong. If you don't know the difference, should you really be teaching us? Maybe you should be in 3rd grade and I can teach math. And #X200B. And that was when she grabbed me by the collar. And dragged me to the office. And #X200B. It set the tone for our relationship, and remains one of my funniest memories from 3rd grade.
What does G&T mean?
I hated teachers like this. It's more a shame if you never got back at the old hag. Nothing more infuriating than people who can't admit they're wrong and uses their authority to keep you quiet or in place.
Oh wow, I know, wrong sub, but NTA. You were a child with limited life experience due to not having yet spent much time on planet Earth. That doesn't make Yara Kevin, just a kid. That teacher though, really seriously not good at her job. Could have been a great teaching moment and such it up by being all authoritarian about it. Oh, I made a simple mistake and now look foolish in front of other people. This is a good teaching moment to demonstrate to the children how making mistakes is a normal human thing that everybody does, so they know it's not a big deal and nothing to feel anxious. I mean, it's so easy. Whoops, yup, you're right, I wasn't paying attention and made the wrong mark. Thank you for catching that for me.
Abbreviation for gifts, and I was the kind of kid who acted out when bored, and unfortunately for any adults trying to mind me, I tested with an IQ in the top of the population. Probably had undiagnosed ADHD, am getting evaluated as an adult, and had a high processing speed, so I got bored really easy. In my old school, the G&T kids were in mainstream classes for social skills but had a custom curriculum and were allocated teacher's aid time and were taken to a SPED program 1 period each day where we'd get tutoring and get assigned special projects, because otherwise we tend to miss out on learning executive function skills and self-discipline because our book smarts can compensate until they can't. In the 90s this was a revolutionary approach, but now it's pretty standard because it's recognized gifted kids are special needs kids. Unfortunately, the new school didn't support G&T kids at all. Basically, I had the decompensation that's expected if you toss a G&T kid used to an enriched program into a mainstream program with no support.
Here I was thinking G&T meant gin and tonic.
Unfortunately, no. She abused me with impunity, and as my post alludes, my home life wasn't the greatest, so I just had to put up and shut up about it. My parents, who have mellowed with age, finally realized I wasn't bullshitting about her when a friend of my sister's, who was my classmate that year, was over for dinner, and somehow the conversation turned to that woman. She mentioned how badly Kevina hated me and some of the standout instances of emotional abuse, and suddenly my parents were like, "Oh you weren't just exaggerating." They now insist they would have done something if I told them, blissfully ignoring the many times I did tell them and got grounded or threatened with soap in the mouth for speaking ill of others for my trouble. Believe me, this isn't even close to the worst Kevina pulled. That was either the time she had me stand in the middle of a circle of all my classmates and went one by one having each of them say something they didn't like about me, or how she developed selective blindness to my classmates, bullying me right in front of her, and basically used them to mete out corporal punishment that was illegal for teachers to do personally. I never got revenge or justice for it. Nowadays I don't think I'd so much as spit on her if she was on fire, but I do appreciate that on at least one occasion I made her thoroughly look like an idiot. Yeah, that's what I do as an adult with the kids I volunteer with. Usually with a self-deprecating joke. Kids love seeing adults up and having a good laugh at their expense, and it doesn't hurt your authority at all with them. If anything, it helps because they know you've got the integrity to admit your faults, so subconsciously they usually believe you're at least trying to be fair. I do owe her one thing. She taught me some really good lessons on how not to treat others. That's about all I learned from her. But hey, don't be is a decent lesson even if it's not the one she was trying to teach.
Man, takes me back to my school days. Teachers marking answers wrong on my tests that were asterisk 100% not wrong, and then refusing to admit it, refusing to explain to me why they thought it was wrong, sending me to the office when I would stand my ground, and then the administration not giving a single about anything but it didn't matter that I was right. Asterisk it only mattered that I undermined their authority and didn't respect adults, simply for being adults. Being punished or marked down for reading ahead of the snail-paced language arts classes. Having my assignments thrown out for completing them early. Being frustrated with having to learn to name all of the previous presidents in order when prompted, rather than learning about the things they actually did. Just years and years of inane, pointless busy work and forced subservience. Most academic things I learned on my own. The only thing school ever really taught me was to have a healthy hatred for authority. After being eventually sent to continuation school, said defiance playing a big part in that, and having the option to just do all the work completely on my own, magically I was able to pass every course packet handed to me with flying colors, and in a matter of weeks. And even then I had to do some of them completely over again because I couldn't have done it that quickly, and must have cheated, copied.
Oh, also, I stand by saying I could be a Kevin. I almost flunked home ec in 8th grade after I got myself banned from using the sewing machines after accidentally sewing my hand to the fabric. Twice. Turns out I have motor dysgraphia and I literally don't know where my hands are in space if I'm not looking at "Told Me Gullible" was written on the ceiling. I looked. On 7 separate occasions. I was very confused over why my best friend was furious with me after I complimenting her shirt by saying it made her belly look flat. She was chubby and insecure about it. I genuinely had no clue why she was upset. I had to beg my kid sister to explain it to me for 3 weeks before she believed me that no, I really am that much an idiot. I was 17. Old enough I should have known. My mother told me to watch the pizza in the oven. So I did. Watched the cheese melt and turn golden, then brown, then black, then begin to smoke, then catch fire. Mom was furious with me and I didn't know why. It wasn't some malicious compliance thing, it just never occurred to me to take it out when it was done. I was 11, old enough I should have been able to figure out my mother's expectation. I was extremely overliteral. I was a kid who could calculus at 10, and I was 15 before I grasped the concept of a metaphor. And even then I was deeply offended by the concept of figurative language until I was about 17. Why not just say what you mean? Case in point. In response to being told, "That's the calling the kettle black." I remember saying, "Pots can't." I was 14. I can go on here. And yeah, I have my childhood IQ tests to document the fact I allegedly was in fact gifted. My IQ broke the test they gave me for it at 7. I was above the detection limit of 170. But I was the embodiment of the saying, for a smart kid, you sure can be.
Honestly, have ya been checked for neurodivergence? The combination of very smart and quite autistic can lead to situations like that. I've got oodles of stories like that, including the day a friend took me to a casino and I started loudly asking questions about things I saw but didn't understand. These people look so sad. Why do they stay if this place makes them sad?
I've got complex PTSD and am currently getting evaluated for ADHD and working on an autism referral. I was referred for autism evaluation as a girl in the early 1990s. Twice. But my parents felt it wasn't good to label me and opted not to proceed. I have many issues with my upbringing and the CPTSD to show for it, but also at the time SPED programs for autistic kids in the region one lived was basically, lock them in a room with coloring books. So I can't really complain about that one too much. The school was already grasping for any excuse to shove me in the SPED room and forget I existed, so a DX would have saw them do just that so I could quit being such a PETA to the teachers.
Whoa, yeah, way unusual to get checked as a girl in the 90s. I think my parents would have thrown things at the doctors if they'd ever tried to diagnose me with crazy during childhood, and the schools would have used it as a reason to keep me out of advanced classes. But it has been a real relief figuring this stuff out as an adult. Turns out I was never a bad kid and I'm not losing my marbles or going bananas as an adult, I'm just stimming and it's normal. Healthy even, and since it's not hurting anyone, no need for me to suppress it most of the time. I try not to rock in public because it can bother people, but really I think folks should just learn to mind their own business and not mind my fidgets. If you haven't found it yet, autistic with ADHD is wonderful and friendly.